Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me here on the Mingle Media Television Network. My name is Robin Craig, and you're watching Robin Craig Live, where I'm broadcasting from Houston, Texas. And the word of the day is drought. It has been so hot. We've been breaking records from 1980 for the most consecutive days of three-digit temperatures. And we have also broken records for the most consecutive days with no rain. We've all been under mandatory water rationing forever. And I was laughing because I went out today and it was like, I thought fall is here. It feels so cool. And it was in the 90s. So you know it's hot when the 90s feel like relief. So we've had a lot of wildfires. I hope you guys will add to your lengthy prayer list to pray for the wildfires. I know a lot of people that are sitting on pins and needles waiting to be evacuated. They've already loaded up the car. They're just waiting to be evacuated. So we're hoping that the fires get put out, but it's just been so dry for so long. If there's any kind of spark or anything that looks like fire, I mean, it just takes over. So pray for us. Now, I'm happy to be back tonight. I took a brief hiatus. I have done the show since January of 2010, and I never took a hiatus. And that's goofy because guess what? I'm a TV producer. I know about hiatus. But you guys are so important to me, and we have so much to talk about that I just never wanted to take a break. So I'm thrilled that I got a break, and I'm really excited that you have taken time to be here because tonight we're talking about 9/11. On September the 11th of this year, it will mark the 10th anniversary of a great American tragedy, and it's something that we will never ever forget, and we have to continue talking about it. So I got two special guests. I'll tell you about that in a moment, but first I want to give you the critter update. Now, all of you who may be new to the show may not know that I tracked 4 possums and 4 raccoons in 2010. You'd never know by looking at me, but I'm a widow, and we're strong, and we're powerful, and we confront whatever comes our way. Well, I guess the word got out in the wildlife community because I haven't had any wildlife. But guess what? Just the other day, I went out to eat with a special friend, and I was walking across the parking lot, and guess what I saw? I took a picture and I developed it because I wanted you to see what I saw. A little frog that had been flattened by a vehicle. So I have a feeling his family's looking for him. If you recognize him, please contact me on Robin Craig Live because I really would like to notify the next of kin and let them know what happened to this poor little guy. So that's it for the critter update. Now, on July the 22nd, I was honored to once again be able to be on Fox News in recognition of Help a Widow Day, which I founded in 2009. It was a very special event, and I look forward to every opportunity to talk about widows and our plight and how we need people to be there for us and so forth. So here I am on Fox News. I'm giving y'all a little update. It was very special, and they're so supportive with all these endeavors. It was just like the greatest. And then August the 12th through the 14th, I had the great pleasure to be in San Diego at a wonderful annual event that is put on by Soaring Spirits Loss Foundation. It's called Camp Widow. And what made it so special is I got to meet a lot of you guys, my Facebook fans, viewers of the show. I was so excited, I almost didn't even know what to do. But I took some photographs because I wanted to share this. I really wanted to share this. You remember how I was all about getting Nyla and Linda to Camp Widow? It worked. I called my buddy Michelle Neff Hernandez out there in California, and because of what is called the FROVA fund, you can't say it too quickly, they came up with the funds, and check this out. Linda and Nyla looking good, going to the banquet out there on the West Coast. It's just so exciting. And I wanted to just keep taking pictures. Look how beautiful. Linda looked so gorgeous in her beautiful dress. She had so much fun, and Nyla was sporting her heels. Check out Nyla's sexy shoes. She said her kids wouldn't believe it. Well, guess what? They will now because I photographed it. We just showed it on the air here. And Mandy, who was in the chat room, I was so happy to get to meet her. And little sweet Brandy, the Frova Fun, got both of the girls there. It was so exciting to meet these girls. And as you can see, we were eating, it looks like a martini, but it's potatoes from the potato bar. Oh, it was so great. It was so wonderful. And then here we are again. There's me, and there's Nyla, and there's Linda, and there's Donita Pirtle. We were all hanging out and enjoying. You see all the gorgeous palm trees. We were at the San Diego Marriott. They had the biggest pool, and this year I got to go swimming. I was the happiest camper in America. Last year I was so disappointed I didn't have time to swim, but this year we worked it in, and I heard myself say the words, "I'm cold." I haven't said that in so many months. It was great. And here's beautiful Michelle Neff Hernandez. She is the founder of Soaring Spirits Lost Foundation, and she had on a hot blue dress and some really hot shoes. It was so beautiful to see. And I was delighted to meet Gloria Horsley. And she has got so many credentials. I'm telling you, I looked at her card and it looked like the alphabet. She had so many letters behind her name. I thought she's just reciting the whole alphabet until I tuned in and I realized she's a psychotherapist and she is the founder of Open to Hope Foundation. It was a pleasure to meet her at that event. And here's my little favorite, Rachel Kadanes. Rachel and I were roommates this year and last year, and we are a perfect match because Rachel, look how gorgeous she is. You know how long it takes her to get ready? Like 15 minutes. I had like a 20-hour extreme makeover, and Rachel just looked so beautiful, and she's got it down to 15. So she's my idol, and every time I pack for a trip, I think about her. I want to be like her. So I'm working on that. I got a long way to go. And Sandy, I see you're here, and I'm so glad because guess what? I'm showing your picture too. Here we are. This is Sandy Charles, who's watching the show, and this is Carol Scabelli. She's out in Anaheim, and Carol is up in New York, and Carol's written a book called Poor Widow Me. I will have her on the show this season as well. And my sweet little Robin Moore, here we are, the two Robins at Camp Widow. Robin has a wonderful blog, and if you guys have not checked out Widowed Village on Facebook, they're of course tied up with Soaring Spirits Lost Foundation. We all are in some way or another. And Robin manages that along with Hyla Molander. And if you haven't seen Hyla, guess what? I got her picture too. She's gorgeous. She's beautiful. She's a mommy of 4. And it was such a pleasure to see her again. And I love her. She's got a book as well called Finding Light, and her oldest daughter has now written a book, and it was illustrated by her younger daughter. It's just priceless that you can have an experience and have it revolve around grief, and then to bring your children into it. These kids are going to be so far advanced when it comes to the category of grief. It's wonderful. And then I wanted to show that it's not all women. Here is the handsome Matt Logelin, who has the Liz Logelin Foundation. His wife died hours after giving birth to their first child, so he became a single father of a beautiful little girl, Maddie, and a widower in just hours apart. I mean, it's just horrible. But he has come into what I call turning the lemons into lemonade, and he's got a wonderful foundation and is really helping to give back. So that was great. And now I have to say that Nyla, who we all know is from Oklahoma, she had never seen the beach. And I felt kind of badly because I wanted to be able to take her up and down the beach, but I had an appointment for several months in advance with a girlfriend of mine who lives out there, and I have only seen her, once last year and this year. But I was afraid that Nyla, who I did find out made it to the beach, I was concerned that she might not make it. So I felt obligated to take some pictures. And I know, Nyla, I haven't sent them yet. I promise I will. I'm inundated. But there was one area that had surfers. And I thought, if Nyla's never seen the beach, I bet she's never seen a surfer. So I got my little Kodak camera and I put it on 12 zoom. It was so far away, my girlfriend kept saying, "What are you taking a picture of?" And I'm like, I can't talk. I have to be really still because I'm on super zoom and I'm photographing a surfer. All of a sudden I thought, what's he doing? And I realized this guy was taking his wetsuit off. I felt like really voyeuristic. And that wasn't my intent. But Nyla, honey, this is for you, and there are more. This is just a sample. I will send them to you. So we had a great time at Camp Widow. They're now doing it on the East Coast. So if you didn't get to go because the West Coast was too far away, you can go now. It's really a wonderful thing. So thank you all for really making my weekend special. And thank you if you were in my workshop, and we just look forward to doing it again. If I don't make it out to the East Coast, hopefully the West Coast again, if they ask me back. Okay, now I want to also mention Health Source Chiropractic and Rehab. If you haven't gone to see Sean Jackson and you are in the greater Houston area, you got to go by and see him. He is just like the greatest chiropractor, and he offers a host of services besides just spinal manipulation, which we all need that. We abuse our bodies so much, but he's got a program called iSculpt for cellulite. He does testing. If you have a child that needs to be drug tested or you need to be tested for your job, he can take care of that. He's got like the best massage therapist, and you can go for a massage for an hour and a half. It's like the biggest treat in the world for only $49. And if you have an extra 10 bucks, 2 hours with Joseph at the Health Source Chiropractic Center. So you must go out there. They have a weight loss program. Just go. If you're in the area, just go. You won't regret it. So I know we could talk for 100 more years, but we've got Abigail Carter on standby. I hope that you guys had a chance to meet her at Camp Widow. She taught a great workshop. I ducked in and I got to be there for a little bit. And Abigail has also written a book called The Alchemy of Loss. Tonight, I'm giving away her book. I do not have a copy to hold up, but I'm giving away her book. And you guys know how much I love Benitos. I am giving away a case of Benitos. Here they are. You see me eat them on the show. You see me hold them up. They are made. They've got 4 different flavors. My favorite are those that are made of black beans. There's a regular black bean. It's great with guacamole. Oh my gosh. And this is the Chipotle barbecue. This big, look how big this thing is. I mean, this is like a real bag of chips. I will be giving away a box. They're going to make a special box mixed. Half of the black bean regular and half of the Chipotle barbecue sauce. And you're going to love them. So in order to win, if you want to win the Benitos, you have to go to RobinCraigDirect.com. That's my website. Robin with an I, Craig, C-R-A-I-G, direct.com. And the 10th email that I get is going to get a case, and they're going to ship them right to you. You can't beat that. Now, if you want to win a copy of Abby's book, all you got to do is have the most comments in the chat room, and we'll be picking a winner in a little bit here at the end of the show. So for now, let's see if we can get Abby on the phone. It's so exciting. I know, I'm telling you, I've been making guacamole so much. I really have, just so I have some dip that's also healthy. Hello, Miss Abby. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing just great. Have you been watching the first of the show?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, good. Well, I told everybody we're giving away your fabulous book called The Alchemy of Loss, and the person who has the most comments in the chat room is going to win your book. So I'm excited about that.
Cool.
Now, you know that we're talking about the 9/11 anniversary, 10 years since the tragedy occurred. How are you and your 2 adorable kids doing?
We're doing fine. We are doing fine. A little hit up with all the media, but it's been okay.
Yes.
Hanging in there.
Yes, and that's the hard part. I know that so many times we want to escape what's happening, but at the end of the day, you can't escape anything, because every time you turn on your television, there's another program. And it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's good in that we don't want to ever forget, but it's hard when you are a survivor of someone who was lost in that great tragedy to kind of have it thrown in your face a lot, if you will. And I was watching a show last night on ABC that was about the children of 9/11, and I thought about your 2 kids, Carter and Olivia. Olivia was 6, Carter was 2, and that's so young to try to comprehend what has really happened to your dad. And from all the stories that you have shared to think that Olivia's driving and she speaks Spanish. Oh my gosh. And I know the way you're so descriptive in your writing. I love the way you write, and I love the fact that you never thought of yourself as a writer. But it's
Yeah.
so special that you have managed to make so many changes in your life. And one of the biggest ones that I know of is that you moved from New Jersey 3,000 miles across the United States to live in Seattle.
Yep.
And I was touched because I read the article you wrote called My Unintentional Life. And I was really touched by what you wrote, and it was amazing to see a picture of your husband and to see how handsome and how vibrant he was, and to see Carter being just so tiny. And and I could tell by the way you wrote it that you have carved a nice place out in life for you and your children. Do you have any tips for anybody on how to achieve that?
Oh gosh, that's such a big question. Um, I think we did it on a whole bunch of levels. Um, early on when they were so small, I think the trick was to maintain the routines as much as possible. It was really hard. Olivia was 6, and so she was in first grade. And after everything happened, there was probably about 2 weeks where she just didn't go to school at all. And then after 2 weeks, I decided for all our sakes that it was time. And she really didn't want to go, and she, complained of stomach aches and all that kind of thing. But I just stuck with it, and as hard as it was to do, because I knew she was in pain and didn't want to do it, I just stuck with it, did it anyway, and made her go. And eventually she got into sort of a little bit of a routine, and that really helped. And then with Carter, it was sort of the same. He was only 2, so he already sort of had a routine, and, one of the hardest things to do when you're grieving is to keep your kids in a routine. I mean, half the time I didn't know if they'd had lunch or breakfast or dinner, if they'd had their naps, if they'd had their baths. I couldn't remember from one day to the next what I'd done the night before even, so that was the hardest part. But once I was able to sort of get there, that really saved us initially. And then the other thing that happens is that the kids, as they get older, you kind of have to explain the loss again and again. And that becomes really interesting. You sort of think you're over it, but the kids are still, like when they're 2, they don't remember what they learned when they were 2, when they're 4, like you have to explain it again when they're 6 and when they're 8.
Yes.
And you're explaining it in different ways, but it can kind of catch you off guard because, you think you're over it, but they're not, they're just starting to learn about it. And so that's been really interesting to kind of figure out. And then the other thing that, as a parent, I think you're constantly battling whether or not you're dealing with kids' normal behavior or whether you're dealing with kids' grief. And so you're constantly questioning yourself, when they're going through stuff.
Yes.
You sit there going, okay, they're having a temper tantrum over their homework. Is that because they're just really frustrated with their homework, or does this actually mean that they're, because this is how kids show their grief sometimes, is getting totally frustrated with homework, and then that kind of disintegrates into something else, and you realize, oh wait, this is them being sad over their dad.
So it's almost like you were like a psychologist or a psychiatrist trying to determine with your own children what's normal and what is a byproduct of their loss.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It is. Yeah, it's pretty nutty.
And
I did get professional help for them. Carter was pretty resistant to it, but it helped Olivia a lot. And then, I was often able to meet with the psychologist as well that would help me to sort of parent through it. Like she was really good about, like, when you're with the kids, to be really disciplined and to be very consistent. If you're going to punish them, you've got to carry through with the punishment. And it's so easy when you're a grieving parent to kind of forget about that. Like you sort of are much more apt to kind of go, oh well, I know I said that I would put you in a timeout, but that's too hard. I can't be bothered.
yes.
And then they learn to get away with it. So Carter was about 4 before I realized I was, having to do stuff that that I should have done when he was 2.
Yes. I can only imagine how difficult that is, but it seems like you've managed to figure things out well, and you've got 2 children that are thriving. And as I said earlier, just from reading your writing, I can see that you have found a good place for yourself. And that's no easy task. There are so many people that are hurting and grieving, and we don't know what to do with ourselves. Like you said, you're in a fog, you're walking around, you don't even know if you combed your kids' hair or if you even fed them, because you just can't think right. You're just so off regardless of how the loss occurs. And I know for you, because I was really touched about how you said, as the children grew, you had to continue explaining what happened, and that your son, because you would have to say, airplanes and tall buildings, and that your son would make the association when he would see a tall building to think, is my daddy in there? And
Right.
that must have been so hard for you.
Yeah, I mean, I got you get sort of inured to it after a while. I think it was more shocking for other people than it was for me because I was sort of used to it. And we talked about it on a pretty regular basis. So it was only, when I found myself, like, people would overhear us sometimes. And I'd realize, like, oh, this must be really shocking for somebody to hear that doesn't know how we talk every single day. I mean, we were having I was having to get like DNA samples from the kids and stuff like that.
Oh
So,
my.
it was just like we
Oh
had
my.
these sorts of conversations.
I didn't even know that, Abby. That's just like crazy. I can't imagine that. I know that we've got more people that are logging on. If you just tuned in, you're watching Robin Craig Live on the Mingle Media Television Network, where we are talking about the upcoming 10th anniversary of 9/11. I am now speaking to Abigail Carter, who is one of the 9/11 widows and a single mother of 2. And I was happy to meet Abby at Camp Widow this year and last year. And if you've never met Ab, here she is. Look how cute she is. Little Ab right here. And if you're able to see that there's something in her hair, I know some people say, well, the photographer should have told her to step over because it looks like she's got a Canadian flag coming out of her head. Well, guess what? She really does. Here's Ab from the side. She's got her Canadian flag. She was raised in Toronto and her parents are Canadian. And her book that I'll be giving away here in a little bit is a bestseller in Canada. And I admire you for writing your book and for seeing it through, because we all know that that's no easy task. And it also dredges up a whole lot of things in the past. But you're a bestseller in Canada. Congratulations. That's so great.
Well, thank you.
I know, I love that. And the part that's really the best is that you never thought of yourself as a writer. I think that's just like the absolute greatest. So if you haven't seen Abby, you now know what she looks like, and she's gorgeous inside and out. So Abby, all of us widows struggle with many things. What do you see through your eyes that's different for a 9/11 widow as opposed to the rest of us?
Well, I think the most obvious is just all the media. Um, sort of everywhere you turn, you get sort of a reminder of your loved one's death. And you turn on the radio and you hear since September 11th or since 9/11, blah blah blah.
Yes.
If I tell people, sometimes I try to avoid the conversation, but often I wind up telling people. And then I always get their response is very often, well, I remember where I was on that day. And so you get the whole story of where they were on that day. It's sort of one of those things where everybody knows exactly where they were. And they all have a story to tell you, Um, so those sorts of things make it kind of strange. I mean, this year I've just been bracing myself all summer, knowing that the media was going to find me. And sure enough, they have. And I try to do a lot of the interviews, mostly because I know that if people read my book, it helps them. And so, I really want to be able to help other people.
Yes, and
so
I did see.
I put my name out there, and I do these interviews, and they take their toll. They're exhausting.
I know, and I
Really
saw one of your
exhausting,
interviews.
but
It
I
was a
really want to get a positive message out there about grief and about the good part of grief that nobody ever really wants to see. Nobody ever really talks about.
yes. And I did watch one of your interviews that you had posted on Facebook, and this, of course, was following the death of bin Laden. And I know that that brings up a host of emotions. Can you describe how you felt when you heard that bin Laden had been killed?
Well, it was actually my daughter that called me up. She'd seen it, I guess, on Facebook, and she called me up, and her first impression was shock. You know that people were celebrating this guy's death, and she was just horrified by this. You know, she couldn't understand why anybody would be celebrating anyone's death, even a guy that had killed her father. So,
Wow.
so I guess it was sort of my first reaction was sort of surprised that she had that reaction. Um, and then
Yeah.
sort of, you know, I totally got her reaction, like that made sense. Um, but, you know, ultimately, it really doesn't make a difference to me. You know, I mean, Aaron is still dead, so whether bin Laden is out there or not, I mean, obviously, you know, one can hope that Al Qaeda will be weakened as a result, but I'm sure there's a ton of things. You know, there's a ton of people and networks that are going to step in, even though he's gone. I mean, I think at this point he was very much a figurehead. So
Yes.
I don't
And
know that his death really made a whole bunch of difference to the.
well, you know, the one word that has come up time and time again in association with bin Laden's death is closure. Did you or your family or anybody else that you know who is a survivor from 9/11, did anybody get any kind of closure from that?
I don't think so. Does any widow get closure? I mean, really? Um, you know, I think closure is something that people who are not widowed really want to hear because that way they don't have to worry about us anymore.
Yes.
But
Yes.
the truth is that, you know, and anybody who's widowed knows this, is that it's with you, you know, it's with you day in and day out. It just becomes a part of who you are.
Yes.
And so you never really get a sense of closure. You're always going to remember that person. You're always going to have that person, you know, in your heart. So, I don't know, closure, it's sort of a moot point to me.
Yes, and I think you hit the nail on the head, and I'm going to be talking to Carol Brody Fleet, a grief expert, in just a moment, and we'll be exploring that a little bit more. But I think you already hit the nail on the head that if people feel, even for a moment, that anyone who has been grieving has found a moment of closure, then it's like, oh, okay, that's perfect. We're all back to normal. We'll have a great holiday season. We'll never see that person cry again, and it's all smiles. But we know it doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't. It's very true. And, you know, and I think that a lot of people really, like I said, I mean, there's sort of those who get it and those who don't. You know, so closure is a word that those who don't get it use generally.
Yes.
That's been my kind of experience. You know, it's just sort of something that, you know, nicely wrapped up. It's like, you know, it's like a Disney movie. You know, the happy ending.
Yes.
And it's a particularly, I think, American kind of sentiment that they want everything to, you know, everybody to live happily ever after.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yes.
it's not reality, I think, for most people.
It's not reality. We are all changed forever because of 9/11, and for someone like me, I have felt very different since that time, and I didn't lose someone that I personally knew in it. So I can only imagine how you feel, and knowing that this is something that will be talked about. A lot of stories die out over time. This is a story that will never die out, and it's kind of thrust you into the limelight. Has that been difficult for you?
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, you know, when there's a big anniversary, it's tiring.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and, you know, I mean, like everybody who goes through an anniversary, all the same things happen to me. You know, right now I'm sitting here with a big kink in my neck. I'm desperate for a massage.
Yes.
I think I might try after it falls apart, you know, and we all kind of go into this period of just cranky and angry, and we're all, you know, me and the kids are just, you know, at each other.
Yeah.
And it lasts for about 2 weeks, and I always get to this point where I go, God, what's wrong with us? And then I go, oh, right, it was the anniversary, fallout, you know.
Yes.
So,
Yes. What do your children say now when they speak about 9/11?
well, you know, I think they were so young when it happened that I think, you know, certainly for Carter, well, really for both of them, it's not kind of the emotional event that it is for us who remember, you know, where we were that day. Um, you know, obviously it's emotional on a level where they, you know, they want to have their dad, but for them it's not really, you know, like they didn't have that moment of just like total shock, you know, seeing this building fall, and you know they didn't have all the stuff because I really protected them from that. I wouldn't let them watch the TV. So
Yes.
now they kind of go back and they've watched it on YouTube and whatnot, but I don't think it has quite the same impact. And to them, you know, like I know that Carter did a whole show and tell when he was in first grade,
Hmm.
and took, you know, the Time Life book and was showing his friends the pictures and stuff and trying to explain it. To him, it was like, you know, explaining volcanoes or dinosaurs. Do you know what I mean? Like it becomes almost sort of scientific. It's not that emotional for them.
Yes.
But at the same time, I think they're becoming more and more cognizant of the fact that there's a lot of media, and we've definitely been dealing with the media. The kids have kind of gotten caught in the crossfire of that a little bit, so they're much more aware. And you know, but they're trying to do things where, like Olivia answered some email questions from a friend of hers that's going to write an essay in the school newspaper about 9/11. And so Olivia's kind of relieved because that way everybody in her school will kind of know about
Hmm.
her and her dad.
Wow.
And people think that they can't talk to her about it, when in actual fact she now is wanting to talk about it.
Do
So
you
I think
think
that's
this is a crazy question, but a lot of people of all ages lost a mom or a dad in the 9/11 tragedy. In your opinion, do you think it's harder on people who were older, or is it harder on people who were younger? Like your kids have virtually grown up
well,
with.
like everything, you know, there's two sides of the coin. You know, obviously for the older kids, they, you know, they were very much tied to the person that they lost. The younger kids, it's hard because they feel like this obligation to remember the person, and yet
Yes,
they don't. And
yes,
so I think that's really difficult for them. You know, I know Carter gets really angry when he goes to these sort of kind of camps and stuff where he's encouraged to, you know, make a memory box and put stuff of his dad's in there. And he just kind of goes, well, I don't remember my dad. Why would I want to do that? Like, that makes no sense to him at all. And
yes,
so he gets really frustrated.
yes. I know I'm looking at the chat room, and the chat room is just totally cranked up. And Julia was saying that she thinks it's harder for each age group, but for different reasons. And I suppose that's true. The younger ones have less to miss, but on the other hand, they've grown up virtually their whole life, you know, without one of their parents, and that's just a
Right.
huge tragedy.
Yeah, and they don't quite know what's missing, but they know something's missing.
Yes. And I know that we'll be speaking to Carol Brody Fleet here in a moment, but what life lessons have you learned, Abby, from your widowhood?
Well, I think probably for me the most profound has been that, you know, as horrible as grief is to go through, there are just some amazing opportunities that it allows you. You know, I think in my book I call it the defibrillator effect of grief,
Hmm.
which it's sort of, you know, it's this massive shock that kind of jolts you awake, and it winds up jolting you awake to what's really important in life. So if that makes any sense, you know, you experience this really close death, and all of a sudden you realize how short life is, and you don't want to ever take anything for granted again, and anybody for granted, and you begin to notice the colors in the flowers and the trees. You know, you just begin to notice little things that maybe you kind of had forgotten about before.
Yes.
And then as well, your friends change, like people that I was friends with before sort of fell away because they were sort of not getting it. And so what happens then is that the people who do become your friends are people who do get it. And those friendships tend to be much, much stronger and deeper, and you can talk to them about anything. Um, and, I kept saying this about Camp Widow. There we were, a room full of strangers, but
Yes.
there was no small talk. I mean, we were talking like to strangers about, everything from death and bodies and sex and you name it, right?
I know.
So you can get right into it right away.
I know,
So
and it's
much,
interesting that you
feel
say
much
that.
more connected, I think.
There were so many topics that were really heavy, and sex was a very prevalent topic. That's a huge issue when you lose your life partner or your spouse. And it was wonderful to be able to have really deep conversations like that with people that you had never met before. But that's what's so wonderful about the widowed community, and that includes the widowers as well. We all have
Yeah.
suffered a big loss, and we're all working to move beyond it and sharing ideas and talking to one another so that we have a clearer understanding of what is considered normal and when are we stepping outside of that and we're going off the deep end. And that's something that we all have to be watchful
Right.
for.
Well, also, I think sex is very. I think it's a very common way of kind of coming out of grief as well.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yes, it
I
does.
think it's affirming that you're alive.
Yes.
It's reclaiming the sense of touch. It's reclaiming a sense of intimacy.
Yes.
There's I think I have a blog post somewhere that talks about like all these different reasons that I found that makes sex really important for grieving widows and widowers.
Yes.
And it's a really common sort of, I want to say pitfall, but it's not quite the right word. It is a bit of a danger though, because you get into sort of relationships that may just be physically based, and you feel like a few months later that something's missing and you're not quite sure what it is.
Yes.
And I think it's just because you've been sort of using sex really as a way of grieving almost. If that makes
Yes.
sense.
I know it, and it was so great to see you again this year, and I appreciate you so much as always. You've been on the show before, and I'm sure I'll have you back, but I appreciate you and what you've created for yourself and your children, and your wonderful attitude, and your fabulous book, and I so look forward to giving away your book before the evening ends. So, Abby, thank you so much, honey, for being there, and I love you to pieces, and you're just fabulous in every way. You're the best.
Oh, thanks, Robin. You too.
Thank you, Sugar.
Love
You have a
meeting
great
you too.
evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Isn't she like the best? She's absolutely the best. I love her so much. She's such an inspiration. And I appreciate everything that you guys are saying in the chat room. You guys are having a heavy conversation in the chat room, and I'm excited because the person with the most comments is going to win a copy of Abby's book, The Alchemy of Loss. That's going to happen tonight on Robin Craig Live. And another lucky winner is going to win not a bag, but a case of Beanitos. Check this out. These are great chips, Beanitos. They're made out of black beans. They've got omega-3s. They've got protein. They're gluten-free. They're corn-free. They're delicious. Guacamole, oh my gosh, you can have a party. So I'm giving that away. So you might want to log on. You don't have to do it right now. You can do it after the show, but you will need to log on to robincraigdirect.com. That is my website. And I'll put it up here for you because the 10th person who sends me an email, you can just type Beanitos, or you can say anything you want to put on there. But the 10th message that I get is going to get a case of Beanitos shipped right to you. So there's my website. Okay, now the hour is just passing way too quickly. Let's get Carol Brody Fleet on the phone. I know she is right there. The phone's ringing. Hello, young lady. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I am just excited to have the show back on. I had my little hiatus, and I was so excited tonight about coming back, and everybody's online. I'm loving it.
Well, I'm loving it too. I know everybody's missed you. I'm so flattered to be on the premiere of your new season.
Absolutely. You know you're my girl in every way. And for those of you who know Carol, you know she's beautiful and she's bubbly and she's smart and she's working really hard to help the widowed community, as I am. She is the founder of Widows Wear Stilettos. And if you don't know her, tonight's picture night, here's a picture of Carol and I at Camp Widow. I showed this to
Oh
a
my
friend the
gosh.
other day, and they called us Salt and Pepper Carol.
I have not heard that one.
I thought, you know, we're sounding more and more like a singing duo. I don't know. But there's Carol. And of course, as the founder of Widows Wear Stilettos, widows don't have to wear stilettos, but there are a number of us who do. And Carol had on some hot shoes. So I held somebody at gunpoint and said, I'm sorry, this sounds weird and it's not meant to be off color, but could you please take a picture of our shoes? And here is the end product. Now, those are some shoes, aren't they? Here's Carol and here's me. And isn't that just like the best? So I love that. We're all about the shoes. We had so much fun. It was so great seeing you out there. And I know you've been tuning into the show. I've enjoyed your comments in the chat room as well. And Carol, you know, we're talking about the 10th anniversary of 9/11 and this stupid word closure that everybody wants everybody grieving to have. What's your take on closure?
Well, most people who have heard me talk or listened to me for longer than 30 seconds know that I hate the word closure. I think that the word closure and the phrase size double zero should be blasted off the planet, or people should be like put in jail for using it. Um, the word closure has become a catchword for people who really aren't comfortable with dealing with our grief. And it's not just 9/11 survivors, it's everybody. They don't want to deal with it, so they're looking for reasons to tell you, you should be done with this by now. You have closure. There's been a funeral. Or you have closure. Bin Laden is dead. Or you have closure. It's been 10 years since 9/11. And what the widow is hearing is, well, okay, this person is no longer willing to listen to me, and I'm supposed to have this magical closure, and I don't. So obviously something is wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. Nothing. And that's why we've got to get rid of the word closure. If people say to you, do you have closure? You look at them right in the eye and you say, no, I don't.
Yes.
And
Yes, and you know what? You just you
well,
just you brought up an important point because sometimes we internalize what's happening to us and we feel like based on what other people say that there is something wrong with us, that we're abnormal, that we're not able to shake this. But
that's
the
right.
reality is it's okay and we have to stand up for ourselves. I love that. We have to say, I don't have
That,
closure.
that's absolutely right. You have to look at people, because I finally had to do this and say, I do not have closure. I don't want closure. I don't have any intention of closing any part of my life. I have moved forward from that part of my life. I revisit it now with warmth and smiles and happy memories, much like we revisit other parts of our lives.
Yes.
But to
Yes.
say that I've closed it, that I've slammed the door on it, that I should be over it, no, I'm not now, not ever, and I coach widows exactly the same way.
Well, and you know what, Carol? You know what bothers me is that one of the most common things that anybody grieving, the widowed and everybody else, people say you need to move on. What's the confusion between moving on and closure? What's the definition of moving on?
Moving on is simply, here's something else that we teach very ardently, is that understanding that if you are here on this earth, you are entitled to anything and everything that you want to get out of life. You are not destined to live a life of gloom and doom and loneliness and uncertainty and anxiety and grief and pain and all of those things that we've all endured or are enduring right now. That is not your destiny if you
again. All of that is okay. That's moving on. Closure is, well, first of all, it's not something you're going to ever hear out of a widow's mouth. Closure is this dust off your hands. Well, that's over. Now what? And it's like you are disallowing yourself from ever talking about your feelings, acknowledging your feelings, revisiting that time of your life because it's closed. If a restaurant is closed, Robin, do you go out there and try and get into it? No, it's closed. You go to the next restaurant. It's the same thing here. If somebody hears, well, you should have closure. It's closed. It's over. It's done. You see the difference here? Moving on is going to getting what you deserve. Closure is denying what you deserve.
Yes, and and as I was researching today, I looked up under freedictionary.com, and the definition of closure was the ending of something as enclosure of the grieving. Even by definition, they put in there as enclosure of the grieving. That's in the dictionary.
Well, and that's just scary. That just makes our job even more difficult because, unfortunately, I think it's human nature. We've talked about this, Robin, that as much positivity as we can be surrounded by, one negative can undo all the positivity. And when Widows for Stiletto, Soaring Spirits, Robin Craig, Abigail Carter, and all these people, widow warriors, are trying to teach others how to move forward, how to move on, how to get past the grief. And then you've got a dictionary saying, oh, no, 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 closure means grief time is over. That makes the job harder. It doesn't mean I'm afraid of working harder at teaching widows. No, this closure thing is a bunch of baloney.
Yes.
But it does make the job more difficult. And widows, unfortunately, are surrounded by people who are using this word and they're saying other things that just simply don't apply.
Yes. I know, and it's just so sad. Like, why do people have such a hard time with others grieving? Don't people understand that when you love hard, you grieve hard?
Because we are a death-denying society, and people think that if we don't talk about it, it will go away. It's just like people treating widows like they're contagious, and most of you know that that has happened to me.
Yes. Yes.
The fact is that not talking about it doesn't make it go away, and I am such a huge believer in constant communication. That's why Widows for Stilettos is so dedicated to creating an environment where people can be sad or angry or quiet or crying or laughing or making jokes, whatever the mood takes us, that's what we want to facilitate. That's what we want to permit. And, I am almost 11 years now since my loss. And many of you know that I did remarry 2 years ago. All of that said, having moved into a great new life where I get to be in service to wonderful, incredible people, there is a milestone that happens in the family that I don't cry. Mike's not here to see it. He didn't get to see his daughter grow up. He didn't get to see what she has become and is becoming. But she's been through all the milestones that kids go through, and he hasn't been here for that. And that's never going to get easier. And I embrace that part of the journey. The journey doesn't end until I shut up.
Yes, and I'm looking in the chat room. My gosh, the dialogue is like amazing. And one gal said, I had someone tell me that they know how I feel because they lost their dog last year. Why is it that people feel like when you lose a dog, which I've bawled over many a dogs and cats, believe me, but why do people think that's the same as losing a human?
I've got 3 furry people in the house too. I've got 3 cats, and it's their world, and we just live in it. But I know that pet owners who maybe don't have children equate their pets with children or spouses or what have you. I have received that complaint many, many times that somebody said, I know how you feel, my dog died. And, you have every right to be offended at it. I just want to go ahead and say it. It's not the same. And I know how you feel is one of those phrases that I'm also trying to get rid of, along with closure. And Abby touched on it earlier. When people find out that she's an spotlight off of the person who needs to have the spotlight on them. You know, Abby doesn't need to know where I was during 9/11. We need to listen to Abby and all of the thousands of other Abbies, listen to their experience, their feeling, where they were, how they coped. We don't say, I know how you feel because, you know, when I found out about 9/11, blah, blah, blah. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
It's, it's about the person who is in the grief moment. Even if, you know, I have never, ever, with all the thousands and thousands of members that we have, I have never looked at another widow and said, I know how you feel.
Yes, me neither. Me neither.
Because I know.
Even from widow to widow, our experiences are different. But some.
Exactly. I mean, Rob, you and I we've lost a lot of women hours on the phone. We stayed up until 2 in the morning talking at camp.
Yes. Yes.
But I would never look at you and say, well, I know how you feel because I'm a widow too. We lost our husbands in very different ways. We have different time parameters, but most importantly, we are all unique. That means that our situations are unique, our reactions are unique. And I would never be so arrogant as to look at another widow and say, I know how you feel. I could say, I've been where you are.
Yes.
I could say, I get that, but I know how you feel. No, I don't. I just think that that's wrong. And
Well, I think if we've learned anything at all here tonight, that we have to be very careful about saying, I know how you feel. And don't say closure. Just don't even say it. Just know that there is.
But you know what? You won't find widows doing that.
Yes.
You really won't. Once in a while, I've had complaints about widows who, what I call, try and out-widow each other. Well, you know, you were married for 20 years, and I was married for, 50 years, so my pain is worse than yours. That makes me a little crazy. But that's more the exception rather than the rule.
I know, and it's just like, some of the viewers, one that's very dear to my heart and yours as well, lost a fiance. And people try to tell her sometimes, you're not a widow. But you still have all the feelings and the symptoms of loving someone. You just didn't quite get to walk down the aisle yet. And that's so wrong for us to try to.
It's very wrong. It's very wrong. And that's why we are so quick to welcome what we call the unmarried widows, the fiancés, the boyfriends, the girlfriends, the LGBT community, because you do have people saying to them, well, you weren't married, so it's, what's your problem? And I can't believe that that's happening, because so many of these fiancés, for example, they were months or even mere weeks before their wedding, and instead they're picking out funeral flowers. I've had a number of widows who lost their husbands on their honeymoon and had people tell them, well, you weren't married that long. You're not a widow. I must have slept through the portion of the service where they outlined the statute of limitations before it counted as widowhood. I must have slept through that part.
It absolutely kills me. It crushes me and it kills me, and it's such a bummer. Well, honey, we could talk for 50 hours. Thank God we got at least probably 4 of those hours out at Camp Widow. I'm so happy.
Right.
And I want to share with everybody that I got to see Stiletto Girl wear her shoes for so long, she finally took them off. It was beautiful. I loved it. It was great. Well, honey, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll have you back 50 more times, but you're the best.
Oh,
And
thank you, my friend. It's always wonderful to be with you and with everybody in the room. I love all of you. I want to thank all of you for supporting Widows for Stilettos like you do. Don't forget, First 100 contest is going on right now. Be one of the first 100. Go to the website for the details.
okay, and I've got it up on the screen. I've got her name, Carol Brody Fleet, and widowswearstilettos.com. I love you, girl, and we'll talk very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh my gosh, isn't she like the best? I tell you, the biggest blessing that I've had in my widowhood is meeting so many wonderful people who get it, and the camaraderie. I'm telling you, I don't even have the words to explain it. But I know our clock is ticking, and I just did a quick message to our Mingle Media executive producer, and guess who is winning a copy of Abby's book, The Alchemy of Loss, now has a brand new owner. And guess what? Nyla Dutcher, you are the winner. Isn't that great? You guys have been talking up a storm. It was almost dizzying for me to look and to see all of your fabulous comments, because you guys have so, and we need to do like a 2-hour show so I have time to incorporate more of what you said, because what you said was absolutely fabulous. Now, Nyla, congratulations, honey, and I'll get with you, and we'll get an address and we'll get the book out to you. I'm thrilled because you're going to love it. And I want to thank Abby Carter, and I want to thank Carol Brody Fleet for being guest on tonight's show. I appreciate the information. I certainly appreciate all of you guys who are out there. We've got a huge audience tonight, and I really appreciate everybody that has taken time out of their Tuesday evening to be here. Now, don't forget, I am still giving away Beanitos, and these are so good. I'm glad that the company is going to ship them directly to you, because that way I can't dig in there. You know what I'm saying? I can already see you now. You're calling me up going, I thought you said this was a case, but there's like an empty spot in here. Yeah, well, that's not going to happen, because you're going to get a case of these. All you got to do is go to my website. I've had it up on the screen. It is RobinCraigDirect.com, and the 10th email that I get, you can say Benitos or let me win or whatever you want to say. It's not about what you say, but just email me and just mention the word Benitos, and I will tell everybody on next week's show who is going to win. Now, I'm excited about next week's show because I am going to be talking to the executive director of Crime Stoppers. Her name is Catherine Cavanis, and she's just a wealth of information. And when I was first widowed, one of the first feelings that I remember having is, I don't feel safe anymore. And since that time, I had an obscene phone caller. My house got robbed. I mean, I could just tell 100 stories. I'm a reality show here, whatever. But I'm grateful that Catherine will be coming on the show to give us some tips about safety and how to make our homes safer. So please tune in next Tuesday. I've got a host of great shows lined up for this new season. And it's just at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Mountain, and 7 p.m. Pacific time. And you know, it took me like 6 months to get those time zones down, but as you see, I got it now. So I'm going to hang out in the chat room and catch up. I've missed you guys over the last few weeks of my hiatus. So if you can, stick around with me in the chat room and we'll talk for a little bit. And don't forget to email RobinCraigDirect.com. Use the word Benitos. And next week, I'm going to have another winner. So I love you guys. I pray for you every single day. And if you're watching the show and you're not a widow, you go out and find a widow and you give her a real hug. Not one of those like I'm like 500 yards away because something's wrong with you, but a real hug, because we need those hugs. I love you to death, and I look forward to seeing you next week and every other Tuesday. Have a great evening. Stay in the chat room.